The new season begins September 12th for the Dot Jazz Series, a collaboration between Mandorla Music and the Greater Ashmont Main Street program. To tell us what's planned are the curator and producer from the Mandorla Music Series, Mark Redmond, and the executive director of the Main Street program, Jenn Cartee. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us back.
I want to talk to Mark first about getting this started in Dorchester. There was a time not so long ago when somebody would have said a jazz festival in Dorchester. What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, what I'm thinking is that for 20-some years I've been driving across town to see live music, and having gotten started presenting sort of by accident in Somerville, I sort of had a notion to try to do this closer to home, and a mutual friend put Jenn and I in touch about this, and it turns out that this was compatible with Greater Ashmont's mission too, so it's been very exciting to be presenting in Dorchester.
Jenn, what about that compatibility? Because you're helping a business district thrive around Ashmont Station. You've got some new building going on, some nice restaurants. How does jazz fit into that?
So Main Street programs are a little different than a Chamber of Commerce, which is more specifically tailored directly and almost exclusively at the small business owners. The Main Street programs have other constituencies as well, the people who reside in the neighborhood as well as the people we're trying to draw in. And one of our core parts of our mission is enhancing the vibrancy of the district as a whole and promoting its existence and the wonders that it holds throughout the whole city. So arts event was always on our calendar, but being able to expand it to be a year-round series is only made possible by the collaboration with Mandorla, with Mark, because of his deep ability to produce these events.
Now, both of you know the neighborhood very well, but Jenn, if you're talking to an outsider who hasn't been here before, they say, Ashmont, isn't that just a red line stop with buses? If that's all they know, what are they in for?
It's a red line stop with 17,000 commuters coming through it every single day between the trolley and the buses and the station. Our commercial district spans from around the Gallivan Boulevard area up towards Fields Corner. It's about a 1.1 mile stretch of Dot Ave. And it grew up from being a bedroom community to this more street front commercial district over time as Boston expanded and Dorchester became part of the city.
Right. Mark, this series is taking place at All Saints Church. It's a landmark. The music's not going to be in the main chapel,
right.
But talk about the room and how the space works for the music.
Oh, it's great. So we're in this a hall called Peabody Hall, which has been a host to live music for decades through the Ashmont Hill Chamber Music Series. It's really well suited to performances that feel pretty intimate, despite being a pretty sizable hall. There's this neat little kind of alcove stage that we usually make use of. It makes a very kind of cozy feeling for the musicians, and it's a great sounding room too.
Now, what about the audiences? Because people think of jazz clubs, they think of these little bars with people slouching at tables and smoking. You can't. This is not the 1950s.
No tables, no smoking, some slouching probably.
Right.
Yeah. No, we've drawn really nice crowds. It's an interesting mix of folks from right around Ashmont and nearby who are excited to have some performing arts in the neighborhood. To folks that travel to, maybe for the first time, to the Ashmont area for these concerts. We've done really well. I mean, part of something I've observed is that presenting in Somerville, as I've done for the last 5 or 6 years, there's so much opportunity for live music in Cambridge and Somerville that maybe I'm half kidding, but people feel very little pressure to actually go to any of it. It's hard to get folks out. Much easier in Dorchester. Mm-hmm. People come.
Jenn, I think one thing people must be looking for in many parts of the city, actually, is a place where people from different backgrounds can blend. So you got Ashmont Hill and you got other types of people in other neighborhoods around Ashmont. Do you get them all mixed up at events like this?
Yes, and I think the musicians have really responded to that. Everyone Mark contacted this year, it was more about when do you want me rather than if they were interested. It's very unusual for musicians in Boston playing jazz to have such an attentive audience that is actually there to see and hear the music, and the diverse range of ages and backgrounds in the audience. And we have even had some of the kids falling asleep on the floor for the slouching. But we're averaging attendance around 60 or so. The hall can go up to about 200. And part of the thing that Greater Ashmont brings to the table is the relationship with All Saints has made it possible for us to keep the ticket price incredibly accessible. It's at just $15 for live music, and we do free tickets to students. And it's made it so that the audience is much more I think it's the musicians enjoy performing in a space where they're not competing with someone's dinner and everything else that's going on.
All right. Mark, what about some of the people in the lineup? I think maybe the most familiar name for a lot of our viewers would be Fred Woodard in the Fred Woodard Collective.
Well, I know Fred sat at this table talking about his Dudley Jazz Festival. It's exciting to have Fred and his group coming this fall. We've got a really varied program. I hope a little bit of something for everybody. Some fairly straight-ahead jazz to some more experimental stuff, to a gypsy jazz combo, to a new project featuring guitar and turntables. So a real wide range.
When you say gypsy jazz, the first thing that comes to my mind is Django Reinhardt.
Yeah, that's the stuff. Yeah, Tomoko Iwamoto leads a group called 440. She's a fiddle player, and her group plays that sort of hot jazz of 1930s Django and Stefan Grappelli, as well as some other kind of swing stuff. And they're coming sometime in the winter, I think.
Now, one thing it took me a long time to figure out, long after I had been introduced to Reinhardt and Grappelli, was how much their music influenced even rock guitarists.
Sure, yeah. A musician would be better able to answer that than I can. But yeah, it's very appealing music, very accessible, but very complex.
Right. Yeah. Right. Jenn, what about your own? Are you a jazz fan yourself, in addition to all the other things you do?
Jazz is playing on our office Sonos system whenever I have the controls, and it's something that I've enjoyed for ages. So working with a friend on providing it in the neighborhood I actually live in, where there's been a lack of a venue for these kinds of things, is really fulfilling. It's a great part of my job.
Mark, what about the performances? First of all, the opener on September 12th. What have you got for that one?
Yeah, September 12th is a quartet called Clear Audience. It's made up of 4 players who, most of whom can be found somewhere almost any night of the week. 4 very busy guys, but coming together here to play original music. The saxophone player Andy Volker, people know from hosting a late night jam session at what used to be Thelonious Monkfish in Central Square. Guitar player Steve Fell, who plays sort of across genres all over town in funk and reggae and jazz situations. Luther Gray, who's often on drums with Boston's own Jerry Bergonzi, who plays Mondays in Cambridge when he's not touring all over the world. And Jeff Sharland on bass. It's a fantastic group. A couple records ago, John Gorelick picked them as one of the best local releases of 2015. So, and they don't play in Boston that much anymore. They do a regular thing in Providence, but it's great to have them as an opener.
And one of the other performances, I guess there's some Eastern European music in the mix?
Yeah, Plamen Karadonov, a piano player and, in this context, accordion player, played for us last year as part of Bergonzi's group. And he's bringing his trio, which would be really interesting. Plamen's Bulgarian, and so the music carries some of that flavor, and it's interesting instrumentation. It's Plamen on piano and accordion with a phenomenal young harp player named Charles Overton, who can be seen at Symphony Hall often. Austin McMahon on drums, who's one of the first call guys in town, and then Plamen's wife Elena is going to be singing some songs with them too.
Jenn, one of the other things here, because we've just been talking about jazz, but if you go further back, Ashmont has been a sort of a hub for you've had classical music in this
The Ashmont Hill Chamber Music has a phenomenal season programmed in the same space this year. They're doing amazing work, and they get national names into Dorchester. The opportunity for people to enjoy the arts together in these sorts of third spaces with neighbors who they might not yet know, and really get a sense together as a community that we can and are worthy of this kind of arts production in our immediate neighborhood without crossing the river, without heading to Symphony Hall, which is a gorgeous space. But
well, if you can take the Red Line to Cambridge for music, why not take it to Dorchester?
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
amen.
we've had people come from as far away as the Cape for some of these artists,
right.
specific artists that they follow.
All right, and finally, for a schedule and all the details, what's the best website to go to?
We're at .jazz.org, and there's a full schedule, and the season pass is there, available at a 25% discount if you commit to all 9 shows. So it would be, otherwise it's $15 a ticket.
Thank you both very much. Jenn Cartee and Mark Redmond.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.